Robert the doll. That's who I'm going to be talking about today, and this one has a big backstory. One that I didn't realize went as far as it did. So, as the story goes, this doll was made in Germany. He's 40 inches long, so about 3 to 4 feet tall. He's stuffed with wood wool, which is kind of like wood slivers. Basically, he's not your typical stuffed doll. He probably feels more like a body shape than an actual like stuffed animal doll, which almost makes him a little scarier in that way, that he feels human-like already. And another thing that could possibly be a reason why Robert is haunted is some people think that the hair on Robert is human hair. But how he came to Florida. So there's a couple different legends of this part of the story. So it was either a grandfather of this little 4-year-old boy who went to Germany and came home with this doll for his grandson. Or the other one is a servant for a family by the last name of Otto who practiced folk magic, and when the family found out, fired her, and she left, but not before giving this little boy this doll. So it's up to you which one you decide is the truth or not. So this little 4-year-old boy receives this doll in 1904. And I don't know what is scarier, the sailor suit, which I will get into in a minute if you've seen pictures of him, like the one that I showed in the beginning of this. This is how Eugene received Robert. This is a picture of Eugene with Robert. He's in a clown outfit. I don't know if I like that. The sailor suit I'm used to, and there's a story behind that too. But he receives him in a clown outfit. I don't know. That's just, I don't know if I like that. But let me get into this little boy. So this little 4-year-old boy loves this doll. And so he started to be called Eugene, but he wasn't always Eugene. His full name is Robert Eugene Otto. He said that his doll wanted his name Robert instead. So he started going by Eugene. His parents played along for a while. They could tell that Eugene really loved Robert. He would take him everywhere with him. He would make sure that there was a seat next to him when they ate dinner every night. He just took him everywhere. Wherever Eugene was, Robert was there with him. But then things started happening around Robert. So Eugene would be playing with his toys with the door closed, and his parents would hear him talking and just, like kids do, talking to their imaginary friends or their dolls, their toys. The thing that they started noticing is they heard a voice talking back. And so they would open the door and look at Eugene to see if anyone is in there with him. No one was, but Robert was. And so when they asked Eugene who was he talking to, he said Robert. And they asked him to imitate the voice. They thought it was Eugene making a new voice for Robert. It wasn't. He insisted it was Robert. Now, things like this would go on for a while, along with some other things. Things would be breaking, they would hear weird noises in the house. And now by this time, I imagine Eugene did change Robert out of the clown suit into his sailor outfit. Here's a picture of Eugene when he was young. He had a lot of those, so I imagine at this point he already changed him into different clothes. Just for imagination purposes, picturing Robert at this point. Just picture him in the sailor outfit. In the middle of the night, Eugene would start screaming. Things would be happening. His parents would rush to his room and they'd find his furniture all in different areas, upside down sometimes. And Eugene would continue to insist that Robert did it. Anytime it looked like Eugene was acting up, he always said Robert did it. And it was hard to tell if it was Eugene or Robert because Eugene always had Robert with him, but he insisted it was never him. And at that time, the family had enough. And so, despite Eugene not wanting this to happen, the family decided to put Robert in the attic just to keep him away for a while. And as the story continues to go, it apparently was his aunt that decided to take him up to the attic. Now, this is where things really started getting weird. So, apparently, a day or two after Eugene's aunt did that, she passed away in her sleep. Maybe it's a coincidence of the timing, maybe not. Some people think not. And so after this, despite Eugene wanting him back with him, his parents stay strong and he stays up in the attic for years. And while he's in the attic, they still hear footsteps from above. They still hear giggling. He is still making his presence known. And so even more years pass. Eugene grows up. He moves out. He actually moves to Paris to become a painter. He goes out and lives his life. But this house has stayed in the family. And so that Eugene got news of his mother passing away, and then that's when Eugene and his at the time wife Annette travel back to Florida. His siblings decide that he is going to take the house instead of them. And so he and his wife Annette move into the house. One of the very first things that Eugene does is goes up to the attic and takes out Robert. And the same things start happening. He starts bringing him to the dinner table. He starts having him wherever he goes. If he and his wife get in an argument, he says Robert did it. And so Annette, she doesn't feel very comfortable with Robert around. She tells Eugene that. She's never witnessed anything happening. She's never heard anything happening like his family had in the past. But she just doesn't like him. Something about him just makes her uneasy. So she asks Eugene to put him somewhere else. So reluctantly, Eugene does, and he puts him in a room that Robert decides where he wants to be. Eugene's childhood bedroom. And so he sets him up near a window up on, I believe, the third floor. And he sets him up in an area where he can see things going on. He could see people passing. He scares the neighborhood kids. They actually try and go around the house instead of in front of the house because they can see Robert. People notice Robert changing positions when he's not moved. But the thing with it is Eugene still has this hold with Robert, or Robert still has this hold on him, to where all of a sudden, once Robert is in Eugene's childhood bedroom, that's where he starts painting. That's where he spends most of his time with Robert. Now, Eugene passes away before his wife Annette does in 1974. One of the very first things that Annette does is puts Robert back up into the attic. And then soon after, she sells the house, leaving Robert behind. And the new owner, she experiences footsteps from the attic that she ignores at first. But then she starts hearing giggling and other things that may indicate it's not just rats or mice up there. So she starts looking around and investigating. And that's when she finds Robert. Now, she's not weirded out by him like Annette was. Instead, she actually brings him back downstairs and she hangs on to him. She learned about Robert once she brought him back down to the house. She kind of dug into the history a little bit and learned about the Otto family. I don't think Annette ever really told her anything. I think she kind of had to learn on her own. And there were things that were done. He would change positions, his facial expressions would change slightly. She would notice these things, but she still kept him around. And in around 1994, she moved out of that house. She moved out of the Otto estate into another house and brought Robert with her. Now, I don't know if it's because Robert was taken out of his house that he was in for so many years where he acted out in a bad way. So one night, she found herself locked in her bedroom. And immediately, knowing the history of Robert, she blamed Robert. And she took him to the museum that he is now in today. Without really going much into detail before she gave him to the museum, I think they actually had to find out for themselves the real history. But at the time that she passed him on to them, they didn't really have an area to display him, so they moved him to the back room. Now, the longer they had Robert, the more they experienced, like everyone does. And then the word got out that Robert was there. More people were hearing about him. More people were hearing the story about the Otto family. And they wanted to see Robert for themselves. That's when they put up this display for Robert. And then soon after, the curse happened. So people would go visit him in the museum, and they wouldn't be all that respectful. They would kind of taunt him a little bit, kind of talk to him like they don't really believe the stories, the powers he has, and just kind of talk down to him, to him. And then they would leave, and bad things would start happening. Like they would get in a car accident, or they would lose their job, and things of that nature. They would get sick. And so they would think of Robert. Next to Robert, you can see a lot of letters of apology from people that didn't really show him that much respect. They were apologizing to him. Those are all around him in the museum. And when people tried to take pictures of him, they wouldn't really come out. And so one staff member in the museum started thinking, well, maybe if you ask Robert's permission, he'll let you take a picture. That seems to work. If you ask him permission, if you show him respect, if you say thank you for his time, he'll leave you alone. So I guess the question that everyone has for themselves before they go into the room where Robert is, are you gonna respect him enough to where he leaves you alone? Do you ever feel like you have enough courage to go visit Robert yourself? I have the museum written down. It's in Key West Fort East Martello Museum. That is where you can find him. And so it's not just where Robert is that is part of the history. The house, the Otto estate, is still standing. It's known as the Artist's House now, probably because of Eugene, and it's a bed and breakfast. Now, things are still being experienced in that house. People have a few theories that it was just always haunted, that it was possibly not just Robert doing those things, but mostly Robert. But other people think that it's just Robert visiting his home. So it could be one or the other. The artist's house is very close to the museum. So if you want to spend a day visiting both, please tell me what it's like. If you have, tell me what it's like. This story of Robert has always fascinated me. And looking into how he came about, I had no idea. I had no idea. I don't know what I really thought initially. I mean, he had to have come from somewhere. But just diving into it the way I did, I'm glad I did. I hope you enjoyed it too. And I think I'm going to start doing more of these because it was actually recommended to me by one of you guys. You know who you are. Where you said, oh, cover different items and haunted items and things like that. So I am, and I'm going to continue. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you next time. Bye.